everybody. So firstly, I'd like to thank the Modern Slavery Policy and Evidence Centre for inviting me here today to celebrate 10 years of the Modern Slavery Act. As somebody who sat in the Home Office in many of the meetings, long before I was a Member of Parliament, in the build-up to the Modern Slavery Act, when it was still a bill or still a white paper or whatever it was back then, it seems like it makes me feel old that it actually became the law 10 years ago. This week also marks International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March, and this is an extremely important day, marking achievements and raising awareness of the discrimination women face on a daily basis. And I will continue to champion women who face discrimination in this way, and it will always be a huge focus of mine and this government. I have met and worked with many of you before, and I'm honoured to continue working with you as the Minister of Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls. When the Modern Slavery Act was passed in 2015, it became the first comprehensive law of its kind in the country. Aimed at addressing and combating modern slavery, the law was a crucial step in recognising and responding to the growing problem of exploitation in the UK and worldwide. Since then, we have made great progress together in fighting this heinous crime and supporting survivors. But there is considerably more work to be done and challenges to overcome. The UK was once at the forefront of leading the fight against modern slavery, and I would like to see us in that role again. I don't normally do this, but I must pay absolute tribute to the work of Theresa May in this particular space, and I'll do that as it's International Women's Day, as well as 10 years since the modern slavery. She's an international woman, if Maidenhead, is that the international? I have seen firsthand the impacts that modern slavery has on individuals and communities. It deprives individuals of their freedom and dignity, while inflicting immeasurable harm on families, communities, and society as a whole. We need a nuanced approach which places the experience of survivors and expertise of those working with them at its heart. I will always be an advocate for those who are impacted by exploitation, and I intend to use my position in government and my experience to drive forward an improved response. The government recognises the need for immediate action to address the significant challenges in this space. We know that victims are waiting for too long for a decision, and I witnessed firsthand how detrimental it is to their well-being and recovery. To have to wait for a conclusive grounds decision on their case for months, and in most cases, years, after being brutalised, dehumanised and exploited, after finding the strength to come forward to authorities. These courageous people have been in limbo, unable to move on with their lives with any certainty or stability. It's cruel, unconscionable and completely unnecessary. That's why I made clearing the decision backlog a priority. Our new staff have started arriving in December, and I gave them the task of eradicating the backlog by December 2026. In a few short months, we've hired over 100 new staff and cut the backlog by almost 40% from last year. It's now half the size it was at its worst in 2022. Today's numbers show we're on track to surpass the target even faster for survivors, and we will not stop until we have eradicated the backlog completely. This is what real change looks like. Not endless talk, not empty commitments, not apathy, but concrete, focused action to deliver results for victims and survivors with compassion and care. I'm also pleased that the modern slavery portfolio has returned fully to my portfolio as the Safeguarding Minister, and that through the introduction of the Border Security and Asylum and Immigration Bill, we have proposed to repeal sections 22 to 28 of the Illegal Migration Act. These sections, which were not commenced because many of us told them beforehand that they wouldn't work, provided that they were a duty to remove applied to an individual, that an individual would also be disqualified from the national referral mechanism unless certain limited exceptions applied. I spoke up against it in opposition, I spoke up against it in government, and they have been repealed. These are important steps, but we recognise we have much further to go. We need to crack on with longer-term change and reform. I spoke to many of you during Anti-Slavery Week in October, where I made clear my commitment on delivering radical change, including through the development of a modern slavery action plan, which sets out my ambition for tackling modern slavery. The plan sets out the first steps in our ambitious vision to tackle modern slavery at its roots and reform the whole system. It reinforces our commitment to working across government and with civil society, business and international partners to prevent exploitation, protect victims and pursue those responsible for these heinous crimes. Whilst I am hoping to share the action plan very shortly, I thought I could use today to share some of the commitments and ambitions that are set out in it. The action plan has 4 key pillars: developing approach to prevention, reforming the identification system, tailoring victim support and improving criminal justice outcomes. Needless to say, all of these commitments will need to be achieved within the realities and constraints of the fiscal pressures that we face. On the first pillar, developing our approach to prevention, we recognise the need for stronger collaboration across the system to understand how to prevent modern slavery from happening in the first place. We want to support businesses to take robust action to identify and prevent modern slavery happening in their operations and supply chains. And the government is playing its part too. We are taking a tougher stance against businesses that do not meet our expectations in tackling forced labour. We must also continue to tackle modern slavery internationally. We are working with other countries to reduce risks for vulnerable communities and dismantle cross-border criminal networks. On the second pillar, reforming the identification system, we will continue to reduce the backlog of cases to provide those referred into the NRM with more timely decisions. And looking at long-term reform, I am really pleased to share that we hope to launch a consultation before the summer to gather your expert views on how we can reform the identification system. We will also continue testing the devolved decision-making pilot for child victims of modern slavery and working through options for further expansion. On the third pillar, tailoring victim support, I'm looking forward to the rollout of the independent child trafficking guardians. I met with many of them recently and I was like, ICTIG, it seems like a weird name. So if anyone would like to try and come up with a better name than ICTIG, I'm totally here for it. I'm looking forward to that becoming a national service for children while continuing the modern slavery victim care contract for adults. Alongside this, over the past 2 years, officials have been working to develop an updated adult support model that will underpin the new support for victims of modern slavery contract. I know that engagement with the sector and survivors to date on this has been invaluable, and your suggestions and feedback have been incorporated to shape the future policy. So a massive thank you to all of you today for those who have contributed to that work. On the fourth pillar, improving criminal justice outcomes, it would just be nice to have some, wouldn't it? Our National Policing Lead will develop a national framework for investigating modern slavery to bring more offenders to justice. Building on the years of expertise built through the Modern Slavery and Organised Immigration Crime Unit Transformation Programme, what's a mouthful? This framework will be made available to all police forces, supporting them to embed these best practice approaches in their operations. Before the action plan was even being developed, our manifesto also recognised the need for strengthening the response to tackling all forms of exploitation. Just last week, we introduced a new offence of child criminal exploitation, as well as preventative orders to provide greater protection to children who are being exploited by criminals. We will also strengthen and streamline domestic labour market enforcement through the creation of the Fair Work Agency, which will provide a more cohesive response to exploitation. There's another thing I feel like I've been talking about for about 9 years. I think it might actually happen now. I don't need to explain to anybody here today the importance of using data and evidence to ensure our policies are targeted and effective. But I would like to assure you that evidence-based policy making is central to the government's mission to tackle modern slavery. Understanding the scale of modern slavery is vital, with recent estimates by NGOs suggesting that well over 100,000 individuals in the UK are affected by this heinous crime. We are working hard to get a better grasp of the full impact of these crimes to allow us to design solutions informed by data, research, and the expertise of those on the front line, as well as survivors. We are actively considering ways to promote data collection and sharing across government and with the wider sector to inform policy interventions and research. This is vital, and we know we are not there where we need to be. To support this goal, we are seeking to include additional data analysis in our NRM statistics publications, including updated statistics on ICTIG's devolving child NRM decisions pilot and the comparison of trends. And we are in the process of establishing a new data and evidence group in collaboration with NGOs, which will focus on data and evidence sharing to improve prevention. Across all of this, it is not just what we do, but how we do it. And I am clear that embedding the voices of people with lived experience in policy making is imperative to achieve better outcomes. This is something I will continue to champion, and I know officials are considering various ways in which we can do more in this space, including making better use of existing lived experience advisory panels. I'm aware that the reform needed will not be easy, straightforward, or quick to achieve, and a truly cross-government and civil society approach is critical to deliver effective change. My priorities align well with the important issues we are discussing today, and I look forward to hearing from you all. I want to know what you think the game changers are, what we can do collectively to improve the UK's approach to modern slavery. The challenges ahead are significant, but so too is our resolve. By uniting the efforts of government, civil society, businesses, and others, and by ensuring our approach is evidence-based and evolves to meeting emerging threats, we can make real progress in eradicating modern slavery. Together we can and must make the UK a place where modern slavery has no foothold. Finally, I thank you once again for everything you do on this important issue.